Do you want to take control of your health? Hear the truth about dieting and weight loss? Learn the best strategies for maintaining a healthy lifestyle? This is the Yossi Muller Show.
And welcome to the show. I'm Yossi Muller.
And I'm Duddy Muller.
Duddy is a chef with a background in nutrition.
Yossi is a nutritionist with a background in nutrition.
Every show we do, we take another myth and debunk it.
We crush it.
Today's topic is, I have a weight problem. The truth is, it's not that we have a weight problem, but it's that we have an eating problem.
Uh-huh.
And it's very important to realize that it is an eating problem and it's not a weight problem, because success is all about tackling your eating problem, not your so-called weight problem. Now, Didi, why do you think people think that they have a weight problem and they don't think that they have an eating problem?
Well, I know I don't have an eating problem. I eat very well.
Good point.
Why are we wrong for believing that our problem is our weight and not our eating?
Because when you lose weight, you are not changing anything. And when someone is thin or someone had lost weight because they were trying to solve their weight problem, they're just in denial because their eating problem is still there.
Right. The weight problem is what's noticeable and what brings to our attention that we have an eating problem. But the weight is not the actual problem.
The point is that weight is really just a side effect of our eating. And if we focus on our weight, we're going to run into a lot of problems, which I want to discuss today. But if we tackle our eating problem, then we solve our eating problem. And as a side effect, we also solve our weight problem.
Okay. Why does it matter to understand that our problems are eating and not our weight?
Because if someone thinks it's a weight problem, they'll try to change their weight instead of their eating habits. You could go to the moon. I didn't say the joke yet.
Well, going to the moon is it's not a joke.
Well, you could go to the moon and weigh 84% less. We should explain to the audience why you weigh 84% less. And it's not just us that weighs 84% less.
Everything weighs 84% less.
On the moon? Okay, but on a serious note, why do we care if someone's focused on their weight and not on their eating? For starters, they won't take their problem seriously. Because if you think about it, is weight really a serious problem?
Nah, I could fix my weight. Just go on a diet for a few months. I'll be in much better shape.
I won't even do that anytime soon because a weight problem I could push off. You know, it's like the joke where if I say I'm going on a diet, I'm going to go on a diet. You don't have to remind me every 6 months.
Right. True. That doesn't work. You will push it off and you'll keep on pushing it off. Once you push it off once, no guarantee you'll ever do it.
And even if you do it, that's not how you solve your issue. If you're focused on your weight problem, all you need is some outside motivation. Like you have a wedding coming up or some competition or
Right.
A spouse is bothering you or the doctor is bothering you. You're not going to necessarily pull some motivation from inside of you to do something that actually lasts long term.
That's why focusing on your weight promotes the idea of getting outside motivation, like a competition.
And if I'm focused on my weight, you know what I'm going to do before I start my diet? I'm going to eat extra because once I start my diet, I'm not going to be able to eat. Whenever I ask a client the first time I meet them what they ate, some of them are very serious and they say, oh, I knew I was starting my diet tonight, so I already started today watching. But a good number of them, when I ask them, what did you eat today? They smile sheepishly, and then they say, oh, I knew I was starting my diet tonight, so I made sure to eat a lot of food because I had to pack it in. And of course, that's not okay, because if dieting is such a problem that, oh, I'm starting a diet, I have to eat before, then you're not really fixing your eating problem by dieting. Because if it's so painful, the idea of going on a diet that you have to absolutely pack it in before, the way to solve an eating problem is not by enduring pain. You solve an eating problem by coming up with a sustainable
strategy
way to eat. Besides for that, if you're saying that, oh, I'm starting my diet so now I can eat, you're allowing an excuse like that to tell you, oh, it's okay if I eat like a lot more food than I should.
You're
right?
teaching yourself that excuses are fine.
Yeah. And before my diet, I had a few slices of cheesecake because
In preparation,
I'm about to start my diet. And then week 1. So basically, if you have that excuse, you'll have a different excuse once the diet starts.
Mm-hmm.
On week 1, you'll also eat cheesecake.
Right, because I need to get myself used to the diet slowly.
And then week 2.
Right. I needed a break. I've been dieting for 2 weeks.
And then week number 3.
Cheesecake is already part of your diet now.
Yeah. And week number 4, you know what I had? I had some cheesecake because I wanted to see how it affects me. I found out from week 4 that if I eat cheesecake, I gain a lot of weight. So week number 5, I had some cheesecake because I wanted to gain weight. Because I know that if I gain weight, that will motivate me to diet.
It's a wonderful strategy.
And then finally, week number 6, which was my last week on the diet, I had some cheesecake. Because I needed a reward for being on a diet
deserve it. You deserve
for so
it.
long. But I'm not going to connect, because I think I have a weight problem, I'm not going to really connect my eating to my weight. When I eat something, I'm going to say to myself, this, it won't matter. It's not going to show up, right?
Right.
This one thing I'm eating divided over the whole week, is it really going to make a difference? That's because we're focused on our weight problem. But no, it's an eating problem.
Right.
Focus on an eating problem. We're not going to eat foods that are problematic, because that is a problem.
So considering weight being the problem actually inhibits one's ability to accomplish their goal.
Yeah, because weight is a side effect of what you're eating. If I think it's a weight problem, then it wouldn't bother me to do a small slip up, a small so-called cheat. I don't love the word cheat because it technically sounds like it's something dishonest or unethical, but in the context of dieting, it's used just to, obviously someone who breaks their diet is not doing anything dishonest or unethical. It's totally normal. But okay, this is a semantics thing, but technically a small slip up, it doesn't matter so much weight-wise. In the big picture, if someone's 50 pounds overweight or if someone's losing weight, does it really matter this one small thing? But it does matter big time in terms of eating habits.
Right. It's not the little bit of weight you gain from that piece of cheesecake that's the problem with regard to your 50 pounds of excess weight. It's the fact that you're teaching yourself not to be able to follow a diet. That is long-term the reason why you are going to keep those 50 pounds and maybe add to it.
Yeah, because it's about habits. These little things that you do that you don't consider to be an issue, because weight-wise, maybe technically it's not such an issue. But if you just picture in your mind a train that goes off track, a train that falls off, right? Like imagine all the carts lying there haphazardly. It's very tricky to get this train back on track. Technically, did the train go backwards? No, it didn't have a setback in terms of where it's going, but in terms of getting back on track, it's very complicated. So same thing with eating habits. In terms of where you're headed, a small slip up is not going to make a big difference. But in terms of where you're going, in terms of eating habits, it does make a very big difference, because every time you have self-control, you get stronger. And every time you give in to a temptation, you get weaker.
That's how it works.
Another issue is that a weight problem only feels like a problem once in a while.
Oh, yeah, true.
If you go on the scale, it bothers you what you weigh. Maybe if you look in the mirror, maybe when you're trying on clothing, when you're going shopping. But for the most part, it's maybe once a week if you go on the scale once a week, once a day if you go on the scale every day. But it's not that frequent that you feel the weight problem.
Right.
But you really have an eating problem. And if you think it's a weight problem, you're in trouble, because an eating problem is from when you wake up until when you go to sleep.
Right. It's a problem whenever you are able to eat, meaning whenever you are awake, unless you eat in your sleep.
Yeah. Well, SRED, sleep-related eating disorder.
Wait, that's a real thing? I was saying that as a joke.
Yes.
Eating in your sleep. Oh, wow.
So the nice thing about it is that it's very diagnosable. It's not that someone wakes up a year after having this disorder, having gained 50 pounds.
Right. You'll notice that it's there before you gain the 50 pounds.
Yeah, you know right away, and it's pretty treatable. It's treated the way other sleep disorders are treated. Now, one thing that's relevant to us is that one of the ways that people get this disorder is by dieting the wrong way. If you diet in a way that deprives you too much, I'm talking extreme, then your body could rebel against you. In your semi-conscious state, you will rebel and get up and start eating really strange foods.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
But even if you don't have a sleep-related eating disorder, you still have an eating problem whenever you are awake.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you focus on the eating problem, you'll be much more aware of your issues because you'll be reminded a lot more.
Yeah. Whenever I see a client who's not serious, I see them once a week and I feel bad for them, but then I realize that no, they're just worried about their weight problem. So for 10 minutes a week, they don't have to feel so good about themselves, but the rest of the week they get to party. If I have a weight problem, certainly once I'm done with the diet, I'm going to go party. I'm going to go enjoy myself. Like the person who we said before eats cheesecake once they're done with their diet. If I have a weight problem, I'll take off my shoes.
Oh, this is my favorite.
I take off my shoes. I'm going on the scale. Very important.
I use this to great effect. To guarantee successful weigh-ins, I've developed a foolproof plan. By each successive weigh-in, I'll wear something or carry something that's a little less heavy than what I was carrying on the previous weigh-in. That way I always have less weight. For example, week 1, my first weigh-in, I'll come in, all my pockets will be full of pennies. There we go. Extra 12 pounds. Used to use water balloons. Not a good idea. Week 2, I take manila envelopes. I fill them up with paper, like 500 papers in each, take like 3 of them and slip them under my shirt. No one notices. It's sneaky. And there we go. It's less weight than the penny. So, I lost weight. Week 3, I'll wear heavy work boots. Week 4, I'll drink a half a gallon of milk before. And by week 8 or 9, I've been dieting for so long and losing weight every week that I'm a pro. I don't even need to weigh in anymore.
So you're good. You solved your weight problem.
So there we go. That's how I solve my weight loss problem every single few months when I go on a diet.
And to solve your weight problem, it's very important that you go on the scale only on Friday.
Right, because that's before Shabbos. You didn't gain your weight on Shabbos yet.
And what's interesting is that people who come to me to gain weight,
to gain weight? People are trying to gain weight?
Yeah, there are different conditions. People could have severe nausea or IBS or different reasons why they have trouble gaining weight. And they come to me to gain weight, and they're all fighting for the Matzah Shabbos appointments.
Because it looks like they gain weight, so it looks like they're doing good. Even though the weight isn't the problem, it's the ability to maintain a healthy lifestyle. They're fooling themselves because they're focusing on the weight and not on the eating habits changing.
Sure, yeah. And they're fighting also for the appointment right before Sukkot and right before Pesach and right before Hanukkah. That's when they want to start their weight gaining diet.
Right.
The majority of people who I see who are trying to lose weight, they're all fighting for the Friday appointment. And of course it's a problem because you could have a month of Tishrei where Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and 2 first and second days of Sukkot all fall out on Friday. So there you go. You had 5 weeks where you didn't go on the scale. And those are not the very good 5 weeks to ignore the scale. But in your mind, I'm only allowed to go on the scale on Friday.
Which itself is a mistake, and it's causing extra problems by giving you less options and preventing you from actually going on the scale.
Now, what happens when I'm on a diet and I lost a lot of weight and I'm kind of okay? I feel better about myself. I'm not so upset about my weight anymore. And people want to know why, when they're on a diet for some time and they lost some weight, what happens? Why do they kind of let their guard down and have a little this and a little that and push the boundaries, and then one thing leads to another and they're back up to their pre-dieting weight? What happened? And what happens is you lose weight and you're not so upset about your weight.
Right. The fact that you lost weight, now you're in a better place. You're less unhappy about your situation. When you're less unhappy, you're less motivated to continue pushing.
And you also know that since you weigh less, you experience that you don't lose weight as fast. When you start a diet, the weight comes off easy. Then it gets harder to lose, or technically it gets slower, which is normal.
Right.
But if you look at it like you have a weight problem, then you're not going to be so motivated to eat properly once you have lost weight.
Right. It's easy to get unmotivated. But if you have an eating problem and you focus on the eating problem, that never changed. Your criteria for eating healthy doesn't change, and you could always be keeping to what you should be doing and avoiding what you should not be doing because you're not focusing on a side issue, the weight. You're focusing on the real issue, which is the eating.
And if you're focused on the real issue, you're going to look for long-term solutions. Short-term solutions are motivation, right?
Yeah.
Getting fired up to do it. Direction, what the diet plan is, what the rules are.
What you're supposed to do, right?
Accountability is a short-term solution.
Having someone you have to answer to.
And it's short-term because motivation doesn't last forever. It fizzles out.
Right.
And direction doesn't last forever because whatever diet plan you're following, you're either going to get bored of or it won't work, or the products will change, or certainly once you lose weight, you're not going to need to do it. You need to do something else. So the direction doesn't last and the accountability doesn't last because however scary your nutritionist is or whatever you're using for accountability just doesn't last. Accountability is a temporary fix.
Right.
But the long-term solution, which is what you'll look for if you focus on your eating problem, is not motivation, but sustainability. If a diet is sustainable, you don't have to be so motivated to do it. When I'm following a diet that's sustainable because I'm full and the food tastes good, and I'm not constantly going into a situation where I have tempting foods in front of me.
Right.
So when the motivation wears off, I don't have a problem because the diet's so sustainable. And the long-term solution for direction is education. I'm not just being told what to do, I'm given an understanding about how calorie deficit works and how some diets are designed to get you to consume fewer carbs, some diets are designed to get you to consume fewer calories.
Which foods are high calorie, which foods are low calorie, gaining more and more information that you can use in the long term.
Right. So when the supermarket runs out of a certain product, or when I get bored of a product,
You know how to replace it.
and the short-term solution of accountability, the long-term corresponding solution is change.
Actual change.
Yes. If you change, you don't need to answer to anyone. If you change, if you become a person who generally prefers to eat in a structured, regimented fashion, and you develop a taste for healthy food, and you still love unhealthy food, let's not kid ourselves, but you learn how to have it in moderation, so then you don't need the accountability. And someone who's focused on their eating problem will train themselves in these 3 long-term solutions of sustainability, education, and change. So the way to solve an eating problem is not relying on motivation, because that doesn't last forever, but rather sustainability. Not to rely on direction, diets, and rules, but rather education, so you could ultimately make your own choices. And not to rely on accountability as a long-term solution, but rather to change your nature and to become a person who doesn't have a problem, for the most part, following a regimented eating plan that may have more foods than you think you should be entitled to, or tastier foods, but it's a plan. It's a regimented eating plan. And the take-home message for today is we don't have a weight problem.
We have an eating problem.
And that takes us to the end of this episode.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you join us next time.